This budget is first and foremost responsible. It starts by cutting spending on programs we don't need to make room for the investments we do need. It includes $2 trillion in deficit reductions over the next decade. Reductions that will help cut our budget deficit in half by the end of my first term. But the most important thing this budget does is to lay a foundation for lasting growth and prosperity. To make the investments that will make a difference in your lives and the lives of your children. Because so many Americans are just one illness or medical emergency away from bankruptcy, we've made a historic commitment to healthcare reform in this budget. Reform that will finally lower costs for families and businesses. Reform that is a necessity in order to reduce our deficit in the long run. Because we know that countries who out-educate us today will out-compete us tomorrow, this budget also invests in a complete and competitive education for every American, in early childhood education programs that work, high standards and accountability, and teachers who succeed, and in an affordable college education for anyone who wants to go. Because clean, renewable energy represents our future prosperity, this budget will finally spark the transformation we need to make that future a reality. It makes clean energy the profitable navigator. It invests in technologies like wind power and solar power, advanced biofuels and fuel-efficient cars. Investments that will create millions of jobs that pay well and can't be outsourced. And because millions of Americans are already struggling under the weight of their monthly bills and mortgage payments, what this budget does not do is raise the taxes of any family making less than $250,000 a year by a single dime. Not one single dime. In fact, 95% of all working families will receive a tax cut.
Peter, you have been mocked on all of these financial shows going back to 2005.
Oh my gosh.
Going back to 2005, and not only did you predict problems, you actually explained what was going to happen. Why didn't anybody listen? You were Cassandra.
Well, nobody wanted to listen. You know, when you're in a bubble and everybody is partying, nobody wants to be confronted with reality. But the problem is people still don't understand what's happening right now. What we're experiencing right now is not the problem. This is the consequence of the problem. The problem was back in 2005 and 2006 and earlier when we were borrowing and spending all that money. That's when we were digging ourselves into this hole. Unfortunately, as painful as it is, the recession is what we need. The recession is the market's way of curing the economy. And the more the government interferes with the recession, the worse we're making the problems.
Okay,
it's like a fever.
Agree with that.
It's like a fever, right?
Sure. I mean, look, we had a phony economy based on borrowing money, spending borrowed money. We need to base our economy on saving money, on producing things. And so the credit crunch, this is not the problem. Credit needs to be allocated away from consumers. We need to stop borrowing money and buying stuff and concentrate on saving our money so we can make stuff. And maybe that's going to mean a rather severe recession. But what the government's going to do is it's going to turn this into an inflationary depression, which is going to be much, much worse.
Okay, how are they going to do that?
Well, remember, we need to rebalance the economy. Even President Obama will acknowledge, and Ben Bernanke acknowledges, that we got into trouble by borrowing and spending too much money. The solution isn't to go borrow and spend even more. The solution is that we do the opposite. And unfortunately, we have to allow a lot of companies to fail that really shouldn't be in business.
But that's politically unpopular to say we've got to actually cure the bubble by letting it pop.
Sure. I mean, but doing the right thing is always politically unpopular. That's why we need to have some elected officials that are willing to jeopardize their own political careers for the future of the country. I mean, they like to play lip service to it, but all they're trying to do is keep it going. They want to tell Americans that there are no consequences, that there are no tough choices. Just like, that news we've covered. They're saying that the government wants us to go out and spend. I mean, how can that be the solution? We're broke.
Peter, that's what I don't understand. You have economists who say that it was the spending, the rampant consumerism that cripple the long-term prospects of this economy, and yet they want to encourage more consumerism.
The problem is they're fixated on Keynesianism. They learned about Keynes in college, and Keynes it's nonsense. It's like he's like a witch doctor to medicine. You can't follow Keynes. Keynes didn't understand economics. The solution is not to have the government spend money because everybody else is broke, or the government to provide credit when there's no credit left. Credit comes from savings, and when the savings are gone, the credit is gone.
Mike Barnacle?
How do you save money when you've lost your job?
Yeah.
Well, it's difficult. I mean, first you got to get another job. Yeah, but I mean,
impossible.
But we need to get another job. The government's not going to provide jobs. The government doesn't have any resources. All the government can do is reallocate resources from one part of the economy to another. But what they do is they take it away from some place where it would be efficiently used, and they move it to some place that's inefficient.
When you say the government right now is interfering with the recession, what do you mean by that?
Well, they're not letting it run its course. They're doing exactly what Hoover did and Roosevelt did that created the Great Depression. We have our resources badly allocated in this economy. We have too many resources in financials, in the service sector. We need to free those resources up so they can move more into goods production. And we have an economy, again, that's based on people buying things they can't afford. That needs to stop.
The most dangerous thing in this country today are the universities, because they're teaching the kind of ideas that would necessarily have to lead to the destruction of this country. I think that the American people is too good for that kind of program. You notice that the people are turning to the right. That's a very healthy sign, but there is no leadership on the right. There is no intellectual leadership. There are no ideas. And it's very possible that the people will be defeated for lack of proper intellectual leadership. However, the basic premise...
Excuse me, but then you don't mean Harvard intellectual leadership or Yale intellectual leadership.
I mean a Harvard that would be preaching American ideas, more specifically reason, individualism, capitalism. If an institution of the intellectual prestige, which they don't deserve today, but they deserved it at one time, of Harvard. If an institution of that magnitude were preaching the proper ideas, that is the ideas on which America originally was based, or to say it briefly, the philosophy of Aristotle, which was the father of this country, who was. If they were doing that, you could have the biggest renaissance in the world, still not too late even now. You could have a better renaissance in the first one. This country would come back to life. But today, when all those institutions from Harvard on down are preaching collectivism, mysticism, and above all, altruism, self-sacrifice of yourself, the giving up, the resignation, all the disgusting kind of ideas that the whole world has been nurturing for centuries. When they do that, this country can survive.
What do you think is going to happen to the United States of America if we keep going this way?
If we keep going this way, total collapse. But I still think that we won't keep going this way. That what will save this country is not its intellectuals, but the people. Because they've rebelled already without much intellectual prodding, that they've already becoming aware of the fact that we have to go to the right and not more welfare state. That's a great tribute to the intelligence of the people. Only I want to make something clear. I'm not a conservative. I think that today's conservatives are worse than today's liberals. I think they are, if anyone destroys this country, it will be the conservatives, because they do not know how to preach capitalism, to explain it to the people, because they do nothing except apologize, and because they're all altruists. They're all based on religious altruism. And on that combination of ideas, you cannot save this country. The trouble with this country is that it was based on the right philosophy originally by the founding fathers, but they did not have a moral code to match the political ideas.
You love this country.
passionate. Very, very much. And consciously. I love it for its ideas. And I've seen enough of the other side, so I can appreciate this country.
You might even get emotional about this country, huh?
Oh, yes. Why they want me to get emotional?
Might even thank God for it, huh?
Yeah.